Hyun stared at his computer screen in the dark control room. Numbers scrolled past his tired eyes. He had been working for 16 hours straight at the Space Defense Command Center in Seoul. Something was wrong with the data coming from the outer solar system. The readings made no sense. "Nari, can you check these numbers?" he called across the room. Nari looked up from her communications console. She was the best officer at Seoul Orbital Station, and if anyone could explain the strange signals, it was her. She walked over and leaned down to look at his screen. Her eyes went wide. "These quantum readings are impossible," she whispered. "Nothing natural creates patterns like this." Hyun felt his stomach turn cold. "That's what I thought, but I didn't want to believe it." Far above Earth, on the orbital station, Nari pulled up her own systems. She started scanning all frequencies, looking for anything unusual. At first, there was only the normal background noise of space. Then she found it. A signal. Not from Earth. Not from any human ship. It was weak and broken. But it was there. She recorded it and tried to clean up the interference. The more she worked on it, the more afraid she became. This was a message. A warning. But from who? Meanwhile, at the edge of the solar system near Saturn, Captain Taeyang guided his reconnaissance ship through the rings of ice and rock. His vessel was the newest in Earth's small fleet. It could travel farther and faster than any ship before it. Earth had sent him to survey the outer planets and their moons. "Captain, we're picking up unusual energy readings from Titan," his navigator said. Taeyang changed course towards Saturn's largest moon. As they got closer, the sensors went crazy with activity. There was something on the surface. Something old. Something that shouldn't be there. "Prepare a landing team," Taeyang ordered. His heart was beating fast. In all his years in space, he had never seen readings like these. Back on Earth, the leaders of every nation gathered in an emergency video conference. Hyun's report had reached the highest levels of government. The strange quantum fluctuations, the mysterious signal that Nari had intercepted, the discovery on Titan. Everything pointed to one terrible truth. Earth was not alone. And whoever was out there was watching. Thousands of light years away, in a massive station that orbited a dying star, the Galactic Council met. The chamber was enormous, with seats for representatives from hundreds of different alien species. The air was filled with the sounds of clicking, chirping, and languages that no human ear had ever heard. War Marshal Vren stood at the center. He was tall and covered in dark scales. His species had conquered 17 star systems before joining the council. He knew war. He knew death. And he knew that Earth had to be destroyed. "Species 848A has been observed for 60 cycles, Vren announced. His voice echoed through the chamber. In that time, they have gone from primitive chemical rockets to quantum drives. They have weaponized their orbit. They have begun to spread beyond their home world." A murmur went through the council. Some species clicked in agreement. Others remained silent. "They are violent," Vren continued. "Their history is filled with wars. They have nearly destroyed themselves multiple times. If we allow them to develop further, they will threaten us all." Ambassador Katilk rose from his seat. He was smaller than most council members, with soft blue skin and large eyes. His species believed in peace and understanding. "War Marshal, every young species goes through violent periods," Katilk said carefully. "We cannot condemn them for their past. Many of us have similar histories." Vren's eyes narrowed. "The difference is that we learned before we reached the stars. Humans are learning too quickly. They are dangerous. The mathematics are clear. If we do not act now, in 200 cycles, they will be unstoppable." The council voted. It took 3 hours. Species after species cast their decision. Some voted to give Earth a chance. Most voted for destruction. When the final count came, the result was clear. 623 voted for Earth's elimination. 224 voted against. It is decided, Vren declared. The pacification fleet will launch in 30 cycles. Earth will be neutralized. Back at his station, Hyun finally decoded part of the signal that Nari had found. His hands shook as he read the translation on his screen. The message was fragmentary, filled with gaps, but some parts were clear. Warning, Council, fleet coming. Earth marked, 30 days. He grabbed his phone and called Nari. I've decoded part of the message. We have 30 days. Maybe less. 30 days until what? Nari asked, though she already knew the answer. Until they come for us. On Titan. Taeyang and his team stood inside an ancient structure that had been buried under ice for millions of years. The walls glowed with soft light, responding to their presence. Strange symbols covered every surface. At the center of the main chamber stood a pillar with a handprint marked on it. Captain, this technology is far beyond anything we have, the science officer said. This is at least 1 million years old. Maybe more. Taeyang approached the pillar slowly. He didn't know why, but he felt drawn to it. He reached out and placed his hand on the marking. The moment his skin touched the surface, the entire structure came alive. Light flooded the chamber. The symbols began to move and shift. A deep humming filled the air. Then, above the pillar, a holographic image appeared. It showed a map. Not of Earth, not of the solar system. It showed the entire galaxy. And on that map, hundreds of points were marked in red. Worlds that had been destroyed, species that had been eliminated, and at the edge of the map, one point glowed bright blue. Earth. Taeyang stared at the image. Get this back to Earth immediately. They need to see this. All of it. In the command center in Seoul, alerts started flashing on every screen. Hyun's quantum sensors were picking up massive distortions in space, far beyond the edge of the solar system. He ran the calculations 3 times, hoping he was wrong each time. But the numbers didn't lie. Something huge was moving toward Earth. Not one ship. Thousands. An entire fleet, traveling faster than light, heading straight for the solar system. Hyun picked up his direct line to Earth Defense Command. This is Analyst Hyun. I need to speak to the General immediately. We have incoming. Multiple contacts. Thousands of them. The General's voice came through, sharp and alert. How long do we have? Hyun looked at his calculations one more time. 29 days. They'll be here in 29 days. Across Earth, alarms began to sound. Every space defense station went to high alert. Every ship in orbit prepared for combat. Every nation activated its military. But everyone who saw the sensor data knew the same terrible truth. Earth had 200 ships. The incoming fleet had thousands. This wasn't a fight. This was an execution. Nari sat at her console, listening to radio chatter from across the planet. Fear was spreading. Some people were panicking. Others were angry. Some were simply numb with shock. She looked down at the partially decoded message still on her screen. There was more to translate. More information hidden in the signal. Whoever sent this warning had tried to tell them something important. Something that might help. She had to decode the rest. She had to find out if there was any hope at all. As she worked, one thought kept running through her mind. 29 days. Earth had 29 days to prepare for a war it couldn't win. Against an enemy it had never met. The countdown had begun. Junho had never been to Titan before. As the transport ship descended through the orange clouds, he pressed his face against the window like a child. He was a xenoarchaeologist, someone who studied alien civilizations. For his entire career, he had studied ruins and artifacts from dead cultures across Earth. Now, he was about to see something truly alien. The transport landed near the structure that Captain Taeyang had discovered. When Junho stepped out onto the frozen surface, he could see the entrance glowing in the distance. His team of scientists followed him across the ice. None of them spoke. They were too excited and too nervous for words. Inside the structure, Junho forgot to breathe for several seconds. The walls were covered in symbols and pictures. Some looked like mathematical equations. Others showed star maps. Still others depicted figures that might have been people, though not human people. "This is incredible," he whispered, running his gloved hand over the wall. "This is the most important discovery in human history." He spent the next 12 hours examining every inch of the main chamber. His team scanned and photographed everything. Slowly, with the help of translation software and quantum computers back on Earth, Junho began to understand what he was looking at. This was a warning beacon. It had been left here millions of years ago by a race called the Precursors. They had been the first truly advanced civilization in the galaxy. They had explored every star system. They had tried to help younger species develop and grow, but something had gone wrong. A great council had formed. Species that became powerful didn't want competition. They created rules. They created limits. Any species that grew too fast or became too strong was eliminated. The council called it maintaining balance. The precursors called it tyranny. The precursors had tried to fight back. They lost. But before they died, they created fail-safes. They chose certain worlds and seeded them with genetic potential. They designed species that could survive anything. Species that would be strong enough to challenge the council when the time came. Junho's hands were shaking as he read the final translation. Earth was one of those worlds. Humans were one of those species. They had been designed to be warriors, protectors, the last defense against galactic tyranny. "We need to send this to Earth right now," Junho said. "Everyone needs to know." Back on Earth, in the underground command center beneath Seoul, Minji studied the tactical situation. She was the youngest military strategist ever promoted to Earth Defense Command, and she could see things that others missed. Right now, she saw that Earth was going to die. The alien fleet was getting closer every day. Earth's ships were fast and well-armed, but there weren't enough of them. Even if every shot hit its target, even if every human pilot fought perfectly, they would be overwhelmed in minutes. "We can't win with weapons," she said to the assembled generals and admirals. "We need something else. We need to change the game. What do you suggest?" the admiral asked. He looked tired. They all did. Minji pulled up a star map. "We broadcast Junho's discovery to the entire galaxy. We tell everyone what we found on Titan. We expose what the Council has been doing for thousands of years. They'll just jam our transmissions," someone argued. "Not if we use every civilian relay in range," Minji countered. "Not if we bounce the signal through commercial networks. Not if we make it go viral before they can stop it." The room fell silent. It was a desperate plan. But desperate was all they had. At Seoul Orbital Station, Nari received the data package from Titan. She read Junho's report 3 times, and each time she felt a chill run down her spine. Humans were designed to fight, made to resist, bred to stand against tyranny. She thought about everything humanity had survived. Ice ages, plagues, world wars, natural disasters. Every time, humans had adapted. Every time, they had survived. Maybe the precursors had been right about them. Nari began preparing the broadcast. She compiled Junho's research, the precursor warnings, the holographic maps showing all the destroyed worlds. She added Earth's message to the galaxy, a message that said humans would not go quietly. A message that demanded to know why the Council killed species before they had a chance to speak. Meanwhile, at a secret research facility beneath the mountains of Korea, Dr. Sora worked on the experimental quantum drive. She was a physicist, one of the best in the world. For 3 years, she had been trying to make ships travel faster. Now she had a new problem. The precursor technology from Titan was beyond anything she understood. The artifacts that Taeyong's team had brought back operated on principles that seemed impossible. They bent space in ways that shouldn't work. They generated energy from nothing. They responded to thought. Sora connected the artifacts to her experimental systems and watched in amazement as her equipment came alive. The power output jumped by 3,000%. The quantum calculations that had taken hours now completed in seconds. The artifacts weren't just technology. They were teaching tools. They were showing her species how to evolve. If we can replicate this, she said to her team, we can upgrade every ship in the fleet. We can make them faster, stronger. We might actually have a chance. High above Earth, Hyun watched the alien fleet on his long-range sensors. They were 23 days away now, close enough that he could start to identify individual ships. His computer counted them automatically. 2,417 vessels, each one larger than anything humans had ever built. But something strange was happening. The fleet's formation was changing. Ships were breaking away from the main group. Not many. Maybe 50 or 60. But they were moving off course, heading in different directions. Hyun pulled up the communication logs. There was a lot of chatter on alien frequencies. Most of it was encrypted, but some wasn't. He could hear anger in the voices, even though he couldn't understand the words. The fleet was arguing, fighting amongst themselves. Nari, he called over the secure channel. Some of them are leaving. Nari felt a tiny spark of hope. How many? Not enough, Hyun admitted. But it's a start. Across the galaxy, on thousands of worlds, billions of beings watched the broadcast from Earth. They saw the evidence. The maps of destroyed civilizations. The records of council votes to eliminate young species. The testimony of the precursors. Some species were shocked. They had never known what the council really did. Others were afraid, because they had suspected, but never dared to speak. Still others were angry, because they had lost friends and allies to council pacification over the centuries. Riots broke out on 17 council worlds. 3 ambassadors resigned in protest. A dozen species demanded emergency council sessions. The organization that had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years was starting to crack. Back on Titan, Junho made one final discovery. In a hidden chamber beneath the main structure, he found a data core. It was still active after millions of years. When he accessed it, he found something that changed everything. The precursors hadn't just left warnings. They had left weapons. Technology that could level the playing field. Designs for shields that could stop any attack. Plans for weapons that could disable entire fleets without destroying them. Knowledge that could turn Earth from a victim into a defender. Send this to Dr. Sora immediately, Junho ordered. And tell them to hurry. We're running out of time. In the command center, Minji watched as reports came in from around the world. Factories were being converted to produce weapons. Ships were being retrofitted with new systems based on precursor technology. Volunteers were flooding into military recruitment centers faster than they could be processed. Earth was preparing for war. But it was also preparing for something else. Humanity was about to announce itself to the galaxy not as a victim, but as a force to be reckoned with. Nari prepared a second broadcast. This one was different. It wasn't a plea for help or a demand for answers. It was a statement, a promise. To the Galactic Council, she wrote. To the fleet approaching our world. To all species watching these transmissions. Earth has received your judgment. We reject it. We did not ask to be created as we are. We did not ask to be warriors. But if you force us to fight, we will fight. And we will not fight alone. She included the data showing which species had already broken away from the council. She showed the protests and riots across the galaxy. She proved that the council's power was failing. The age of tyranny is ending, the broadcast concluded. Not because we demand it, but because truth cannot be hidden forever. Come to Earth if you must, but know that by the time you arrive, the galaxy will have changed, and you may find that the war you planned is not the war you will get. Minji approved the broadcast. Hyun sent it through every relay they controlled. Within hours, it had spread to 70% of civilized space, On the approaching fleet, War Marshal Vren watched the broadcast and felt something he hadn't felt in decades. Fear. Not of Earth's weapons, not of their ships, but of what they represented. Change. The end of everything the Council had built. He looked at his fleet. Ships were still leaving, more than before. His own officers were questioning orders. Some were refusing to continue. 23 days. That's how long until they reached Earth. But Vren was beginning to wonder if his fleet would still be together when they arrived. The humans had done something impossible. They had turned execution into war. They had turned prey into predators. And somewhere, in the dark between stars, he suspected they were preparing something worse. Quan had spent most of his life as a smuggler. He knew routes through space that didn't appear on any official maps. He knew people on worlds that most humans had never heard of. When Earth's government came looking for someone who could make contact with alien resistance groups, his name came up. Now he sat in a dark bar on a space station orbiting a red dwarf star, 300 light-years from Earth. Across the table sat a creature with 6 arms and skin that changed colors. Its name was unpronounceable to human tongues, so Quan just called it Six. "Your world has made powerful enemies," Six said, its voice box translating the words into Korean. "But also, unexpected friends. Many species are tired of the Council's rules. How many will actually help us?" Quan asked. He sipped his drink slowly. It tasted like metal and flowers. Six's skin shifted to a deep purple. Quan had learned this meant it was thinking carefully. 14 species have pledged ships. Maybe more will join when the fighting starts. But you must understand, none of us can match the Council's military power. We can only offer distraction, division, chaos. Chaos works for us, Quan said. He pulled out a data chip. This contains coordinates for staging areas near Earth. Arrival times. Recognition codes. Tell your friends. Tell anyone who wants to see the Council fall. Six took the chip with one of its many hands. You humans are either very brave or very stupid. Quan smiled. My grandmother always said they were the same thing. Meanwhile, on Earth, Yuna prepared for the most important moment of her life. She was a diplomat, trained to negotiate treaties and resolve conflicts, but she had never negotiated for the survival of her entire species before. She stood in front of a camera in the broadcast center. Behind her, a holographic display showed Earth from space, beautiful and blue. In 16 days, an alien fleet would arrive. In 16 days, everything would change. People of the galaxy, Yuna began. Her voice was calm and steady, even though her heart was racing. My name is Yuna. I speak for Earth. I speak for humanity, and I have a message for all of you. The broadcast was going out on every frequency. Every species with the technology to receive it would hear her words. The Council has marked us for death, she continued. They say we are too dangerous, too violent, too young. They plan to destroy our world and eliminate our species. But we are not asking for mercy. We are not begging to be spared. Instead, we are making you an offer. She paused, letting the words sink in across the light years. We have found precursor technology. We have unlocked weapons and shields that can change the balance of power in this galaxy. We could keep these secrets to ourselves. We could use them to save only Earth. But we won't. We are offering to share this technology with any species that values freedom. With any civilization that believes young races deserve a chance to grow. With anyone who is tired of living under the Council's control. On 1,000 worlds, beings leaned closer to their screens. This was not what they expected to hear from a species facing extinction. We don't want to rule the galaxy, Yuna said. We don't want to become the new tyrants. We simply want to live, to grow, to reach our potential. And we believe every species deserves the same chance. So we are drawing a line. If the Council fleet attacks Earth, we will defend ourselves with everything we have. and we will not be alone. If you to be two, that's now. On to leaf. The broadcast ended with coordinates. Meeting times. Proposals for a new alliance based on freedom and mutual respect. It was bold, dangerous, and it worked. On the moon, Commander Day watched his teams install the last pieces of the defense platform. It was massive, larger than any structure humans had ever built in space. At its heart was precursor technology, artifacts that Taeyong's team had brought back from Titan, equipment that Sora and her scientists had learned to activate and control. Final power test in 5 minutes, his chief engineer reported. Day nodded. He looked down at Earth. So close, and yet so fragile. Everything depended on this platform working. If the shield failed, Earth would be defenseless. Run the test, he ordered. The platform hummed to life. Energy flowed through systems that humans barely understood. Around the moon, space itself began to shimmer. A field of quantum force spread out, invisible, but powerful. When the test missiles struck the shield, they simply stopped, frozen in space, unable to advance or retreat. Shield holding at 100%, the engineer reported. No power drain, no fluctuations. It's perfect. Day allowed himself a small smile. Expand the field. Bring Earth inside the protective zone. The shield grew larger, stretching across the space between moon and planet. When it was complete, Earth sat inside a bubble of force that nothing could penetrate. At least, that's what the precursor designs promised. In 13 days, they would find out if it was true. Hyun tracked the alien fleet on his sensors. They were closer now. Close enough that he could see them with optical telescopes. The ships were beautiful, in a terrible way. Sleek and dangerous, built for one purpose, but the fleet was smaller than before. Ships were still breaking away. Some were joining the rebel groups that Quan had contacted. Others were simply leaving, refusing to participate in what they now saw as murder rather than security. The fleet that had started with 2,000 ships now numbered less than 1,500, still overwhelming, still deadly, but no longer impossible. How many friendly ships do we have? Hyun asked Nari over the comm. She checked her latest reports. 217 confirmed. Most are small, but 43 are heavy cruisers or better. They're gathering at the staging points now. Agin Welda. Don't forget Iran. And our own fleet? 300 ships, all equipped with precursor enhancements, faster engines, better weapons, stronger shields. Sora says they're as good as anything the Council has. Hyun did the math. 500 friendly ships against 1,500 Council vessels. 3-to-1 odds. Bad, but not hopeless. Especially with the moon's defense platform protecting Earth. We might actually survive this, he said quietly. If we do, Nari replied, nothing will ever be the same. Deep inside a research bunker, Unbi made a breakthrough that changed everything. She was an engineer. Brilliant, but young. For days she had been studying a particular precursor device that no one else could understand. It looked like a simple cube, black and smooth. But it hummed with energy. When she finally decoded its purpose, she started laughing. Not from joy, but from the sheer audacity of what the precursors had created. The device was a disruptor. When activated, it sent out a quantum pulse that shut down artificial intelligence systems. Not permanently, just for a few hours, long enough to matter in a battle. Do you understand what this means? Unbi asked her team. Council ships rely on AI for targeting, for navigation, for coordination. If we hit them with this pulse, they'll be flying blind. The head scientist looked at the device with new respect. Can we replicate it? Make more? 5. Already done, Unbi said, pointing to a fabrication unit in the corner. 20 identical cubes sat in a rack, ready for deployment. I've been building them all night. We can install one on every major ship in the fleet. When the news reached Earth Defense Command, Minji immediately updated her battle plans. She had been preparing for a defensive fight, trying to protect Earth long enough for the shield to hold. Now, she could go on the offense. We hit them the moment they exit faster than light travel, she explained to the assembled commanders. The disruptor pulse will catch them off guard. Their ships will go dark. That's when our fighters attack. Fast strikes, hit and run. We make them afraid. What about the shield? Someone asked. Why not just stay behind it and wait them out? Minji shook her head. Because this isn't just about surviving. It's about sending a message. We need to prove that Earth is strong, that attacking us comes with a price. If we just hide, the Council will come back with more ships. We need to make them regret coming at all. Rue. The plan was approved. All ships received their orders. Pilots prepared for combat. Engineers checked weapons systems. Medical teams set up field hospitals. Earth was as ready as it would ever be. On Titan, Taeyang stood in the precursor temple one last time. His team had cataloged everything, sent all the data back to Earth, but he felt like there was something they had missed. Something important. He placed his hand on the central pillar again. The one that had activated the holographic display. This time, he closed his eyes and tried to focus. The precursors had left this place as a gift, as a tool. What else could it do? The pillar grew warm under his palm, then hot. Then it felt like his hand was merging with the device. Information flooded his mind. Not words, not images, pure understanding. The precursors hadn't just left technology. They had left a consciousness. A copy of their collective knowledge and experience. It had been waiting here for millions of years, waiting for someone worthy to find it. Waiting for the warriors they had designed. When Taeyang opened his eyes, he knew things he couldn't have learned. Battle tactics from 100 ancient wars. Strategies that had defeated tyrants across the ages. Weaknesses in Council technology that had never been documented. Get me a direct line to Earth Defense Command, he said. His voice sounded different. Older. Wiser. I have something they need to hear. Something that will change everything. Across the galaxy, the Council's War Marshal Vren sat in his command ship and watched his fleet continue to shrink. Officers were deserting. Entire ships were mutinying. Some species were recalling their forces entirely. What was supposed to be a simple extermination had turned into a civil war. And at the center of it all was one small blue planet with a species that refused to die quietly. Vren made a decision. He sent a priority message to the Council chambers. Request permission to negotiate with humans. Current course of action is unsustainable. Recommend alternative solutions. The Council's reply was immediate and harsh. Negotiation denied. Proceed with pacification. Failure is not acceptable. Vren looked at the message for a long time. Then he deleted it. For the first time in his military career, he was going to disobey a direct order. He opened a channel to Earth. This is War Marshal Vren of the Galactic Council Fleet. I request communication with human leadership. I believe there are alternatives to war that have not been explored. On Earth, when the message arrived, everyone was stunned. Minji looked at Yuna. What do you think? Is it a trick? Yuna considered the question carefully. Then she smiled. Trick or not, we answer. We've already shown the galaxy we're willing to fight. Now, we show them we're willing to talk. Maybe that's even more frightening to the Council than our weapons. The galaxy was burning. Not with fire, but with rebellion. On 156 worlds, species that had been Council members for thousands of years declared independence. They tore down Council flags and symbols. They stopped sending taxes and tributes. They refused to acknowledge Council authority. The organization that had ruled for 10 millennia was collapsing. And it had taken only 3 weeks. 3 weeks since Earth's first broadcast. 3 weeks since the truth about the precursors was revealed. Suji checked her fighter systems one more time. She was young, only 23, but she was the best pilot in Earth's new squadron. Her ship was small and fast, equipped with precursor technology that made it move like thought itself. She could accelerate to speeds that would kill a normal human. But the ship's gravity system protected her. "All wings report ready," came the command from the carrier ship. Suji keyed her microphone. "Wing 7 ready for launch." Around her, 49 other fighters prepared to launch. They were Earth's first line of defense. Fast attack craft designed to strike quickly and disappear before the enemy could respond. Each one carried weapons that could disable ships 10 times their size. "Launch in 30 seconds, the controller announced. Suji took a deep breath. In 10 days, the Council fleet would arrive. But they weren't waiting. Earth was taking the fight to the enemy. Rebel forces had provided coordinates for Council supply bases and communication relays. Earth's fighters were going to hit them all. 10 seconds. 5. Launch. The fighters shot out of the carrier bay like bullets. In seconds, they were traveling faster than anything else in human space. Suji felt the acceleration push her back into her seat. Then the gravity system compensated, and she felt normal again. Around her, the other fighters formed up in attack formation. "Target is 3 light minutes away," the squadron leader announced. "Council communication relay. Our job is to destroy it and get out. No heroics, no unnecessary risks. Strike and retreat." "Understood," 49 voices replied in unison. The relay station appeared on their sensors. It was huge, larger than a city, bristling with defensive weapons. Under normal circumstances, it would take a full battle fleet to destroy it. But circumstances were no longer normal. "Disruptors active," Suji reported. She pressed the button that activated Unbi's device. All around her, the other fighters did the same. The quantum pulse hit the relay station like an invisible wave. Every automated system shut down instantly. Weapon platforms went dark. Shield generators stopped. Even the lights went out. "Target is blind," the squadron leader confirmed. "All wings, attack." The fighters swept in like sharks. Their weapons tore through the defenseless station. In less than 2 minutes, it was reduced to debris. By the time the station's crew managed to restart their emergency systems, the fighters were gone. "That's one down," Suji said. She felt alive. Powerful. For the first time since the crisis began, Earth wasn't the victim. Earth was the hunter. Halfway across the galaxy, Minho sat in a secret command center and coordinated with rebel forces. He was an intelligence officer, trained to gather information and build networks. Now he was managing a rebellion that spanned thousands of light years. His screen showed status reports from 17 different rebel fleets. Some were large, with dozens of ships. Others were small, just a handful of vessels. But all of them were moving toward Earth. All of them were preparing to stand against the Council. "Status report from the Krell fleet," his assistant announced. "They've captured 3 Council destroyers. Crew is being held but unharmed." Minho marked it on his tactical map. The Krell were a warrior species, proud and fierce. When they saw Earth's broadcasts, they had immediately declared war on the Council. Their ships were old but powerful. "What about the Valen?" Minho asked. The Valen were different. They were scientists and philosophers, not warriors. But they controlled some of the most advanced sensor technology in the galaxy. "Valen observers are in position around the Council's staging areas," the assistant replied. "They're feeding us real-time intelligence on fleet movements." Minho nodded. This was working. Earth had turned a planned execution into a galaxy-wide conflict. The Council was fighting on 100 fronts, trying to suppress rebellions while still preparing to attack Earth. Their forces were divided. Their logistics were failing. "Time until the fleet reaches Earth?" Minho asked. 9 days, 4 hours. 9 days. That's all the time they had to make this work. In the research facility beneath the mountains, Unbi barely slept anymore. She was too busy building weapons. The disruptor devices were just the beginning. Every day she unlocked more precursor secrets. Every day she created something new. Her latest invention was a missile that could pass through shields. It didn't destroy them or overload them. It simply ignored them, existing in a quantum state that let it pass through solid matter until it reached its target. Then, it became solid again and exploded. We need 1,000 of these, the military liaison said, looking at her prototype. Can you do it? Yunbi laughed. She sounded a little crazy, even to herself. I can do 2,000 by the time the fleet arrives. Maybe more if I don't sleep. Don't push yourself too hard, the liaison said with concern. Too hard? Unbi looked at him with wild eyes. The entire alien galaxy is coming to kill us. I'll push as hard as I want. She went back to her work, her hands moving across holographic controls with desperate speed. Every weapon she built was another chance for Earth to survive. Another way to hurt the Council. Another reason for them to fear humanity. On the moon's defense platform, Commander Day watched the shield readings. The barrier was holding perfectly. Nothing could get through it. But he worried about what would happen when the entire Council fleet arrived and started bombarding it continuously. How long can the shield hold under sustained attack? He asked his chief engineer. The engineer checked his calculations. Based on precursor specifications. Indefinitely. The shield draws power from quantum fluctuations in space itself. It doesn't run out. True 5. True 5. True 5. True 5. But what if they use quantum weapons, or dimension-breaking bombs, or something we haven't thought of? The engineer shrugged. Then we find out if humans are as clever as the precursors thought we were. Day wasn't satisfied with that answer, but it was the only one available. He looked down at Earth, peaceful and blue. 3 billion people lived on that planet. 3 billion lives depending on a shield built with alien technology that humans barely understood. Increase power to the emitters, he ordered. I want that shield at 150% capacity when the fleet arrives. Across space, Captain Taeyang piloted his ship toward Earth at maximum speed. His head was full of precursor knowledge, and he needed to share it before the battle began. The consciousness in the Titan Temple had shown him things that could change everything. Captain, we're receiving multiple contact requests, his communications officer said. Earth Defense Command wants to speak with you. So does the Admiral. And someone named Minji keeps sending priority messages. Tell them I'm coming, Taeyang replied. And that I have information that will change our battle plans. Tell them the precursors left us more than weapons. They left us wisdom. I would be. When he finally reached Earth and stood in the command center, he found himself facing every major leader in the defense forces. Generals, admirals, strategists, and scientists, all waiting to hear what he had learned. The Council has a weakness, Taeyang began. The precursors discovered it 10,000 years ago. The Council's entire fleet network runs on a linked command structure. Every ship is connected to every other ship through quantum communication. It makes them efficient and coordinated. Minji leaned forward. But it also means that if you can access one ship's command system, you can access them all. The precursors created a virus, a piece of code that can spread through the quantum network and shut down entire fleets. The room went silent. Unbi spoke first. Do you have this code? Quote, Taeyang tapped his temple. It's in here. The precursor consciousness gave it to me. I can write it out. But we'll need quantum computers to compile it. And we'll need a way to inject it into a council ship. I can do the computers, Unbi said immediately. I can get it into a council ship. Suji volunteered. My fighter is small enough and fast enough to get close before they can react. Minji was already updating her battle plans. This changes everything. We can wait for them to attack, inject the virus, and watch their entire fleet go dead in space. There's a risk, Taeyang warned. The virus takes time to spread. Maybe 30 minutes. Maybe an hour. We'll need to keep them busy and distracted during that time. We'll manage, Minji said with confidence. We've gotten good at being distracting. On the Council fleet's flagship, War Marshal Vren received reports of the attacks on his supply lines. 17 stations destroyed. 32 ships captured or disabled. Communication networks disrupted. His carefully planned invasion was turning into chaos. How many ships have we lost to desertion? He asked his aide. 412, Marshal. Most have joined the rebels. Some have simply left for neutral space. Vren felt old, tired. He had fought for the Council for 70 years. He had believed in their mission. But Earth had shown him something he couldn't ignore. The Council wasn't maintaining peace. It was enforcing stagnation, preventing growth, killing potential. Open a priority channel, he ordered. I need to speak with Ambassador Katilk. When the small, blue-skinned ambassador appeared on screen, Vren spoke quietly. You voted against Earth's destruction. Why? Katilk's large eyes studied him. Because I remember when the Council did the same to my world. 7,000 years ago. We survived only because a few sympathetic species hit us until the Council forgot about us. I swore I would never let it happen to another species, if I could prevent it. You can't stop this fleet, Vren said. No. Katilk agreed. But Earth can. And I think you know it too. That's why you're calling me. You want a way out of this that doesn't end with genocide. Vren was silent for a long moment. Then he said, What if I told you that I'm considering withdrawing my fleet before we reach Earth? What would happen? The Council would declare you a traitor. They would send another fleet. Eventually, they might succeed in destroying Earth. But by then, the galaxy would have changed. The rebellion would spread. The Council would fall. All because one species refused to die quietly, Vren said with something that might have been admiration. That's what the precursors designed them for, Katilk replied. They made warriors who fight not for conquest, but for freedom. Not just their own, but everyone's. That's what makes humans dangerous to tyrants. That's what makes them valuable to the rest of us. Vren looked at his tactical displays. His fleet, once mighty and unstoppable, was now a fraction of its original size. The ships that remained were crewed by soldiers who no longer believed in their mission, and ahead of them waited a planet defended by impossible technology and determination. I'm going to do something I never thought I would do, Vren said. I'm going to surrender. Katilk's eyes widened. Marshal? Not to the Council. To Earth. I'm going to take my fleet to Earth and offer our services to the rebellion. Let's see how the Council likes fighting against their own war marshal. When the message reached Earth, nobody quite believed it at first. The leader of the fleet, sent to destroy them, was defecting, bringing over 1,000 ships, offering to fight against the Council. Yuna read the message 3 times. Then she started laughing. Not because it was funny, but because it was so perfectly absurd. Earth had faced extinction, and now, less than a week before the invasion, their greatest enemy was becoming their greatest ally. Do we accept? Someone asked. Yuna looked around the room at all the leaders and warriors who had brought them this far. At Minji, who had planned their defense. At Hyun, who had warned them. At Nari, who had spread the truth. At Unbi, who had armed them. At Taeyang, who had given them wisdom. At all the humans and aliens who had chosen to stand together. Yes, she said, we accept. And then we take this fleet, and we end the Council forever. The Galactic Council chambers were empty. For the first time in 10,000 years, no representatives sat in the ancient seats. No voices debated policy. No votes were cast. The building stood silent and abandoned, a monument to a power that no longer existed. 412 species had withdrawn their membership. Most joined the rebellion. Others declared neutrality. A few tried to maintain the old order. But without the support of the majority, they were powerless. The Council had fallen, not through military defeat, though battles had been fought. Not through revolution, though revolutions had occurred. It fell because Earth had shown the galaxy a simple truth. The Council was built on fear. and fear could be overcome. Hyun stood in the observation deck of Seoul Orbital Station and watched the ships gather, thousands of vessels from hundreds of worlds, all of them flying new flags, all of them representing something that had never existed before. A free alliance, a voluntary cooperation, a federation built on choice rather than compulsion. "It's beautiful," Nari said, standing beside him. "I never thought I'd see so many different species working together." "They're not working together because they have to," Hyun replied. "They're doing it because they want to. That's what makes it beautiful." Far below, in a conference center in Geneva, diplomats from 612 species debated the structure of the new federation. Every species had different ideas about how things should work. Every culture had its own values and priorities. Yuna sat in the center of it all, moderating the discussions with patience that surprised even herself. She had become Earth's primary diplomat, the voice that all species seemed to trust. Maybe it was because Earth had fought for freedom without asking for power. Maybe it was because humans had shared precursor technology freely. Or maybe it was simply because she listened more than she talked. "The question before us is simple," she said during a particularly heated debate. "Do we want a government that rules, or a federation that coordinates? Do we want leaders who command, or representatives who serve?" A delegate from the Krell species stood. He was massive, covered in natural armor, with a voice like grinding rocks. "Earth led us to freedom. Earth should lead the Federation." "No," Yuna said firmly. "Earth led you to fight for your own freedom. That's different. We don't want to rule. We don't want power. We just want to live in a galaxy where every species has a chance to grow." "Then what do you propose?" asked a Valen observer, her silver eyes glowing with curiosity. "I propose we create a federation where no one species is in charge, where decisions are made by consensus, where military force exists only to protect, never to conquer, and where any species can leave at any time if they disagree with the direction we're taking." The chamber erupted in debate. Some species loved the idea. Others thought it was too weak. Still others worried it wouldn't last. But slowly, over days of discussion, a framework emerged. The Federation of Free Worlds. No capital, no single leader. Just a rotating council of representatives who met to coordinate defense, share technology, and resolve disputes. And at its heart, a simple principle that Earth had championed from the beginning. Freedom. Junho stood on Titan, looking at the precursor temple one last time. His team had finished cataloging everything. Now the real work would begin. Teaching the galaxy what the precursors had known, spreading their wisdom about technology, peace, and growth. But he had a proposal that many found controversial. "We should share everything," he argued during a video conference with Earth's leadership. "Every piece of precursor technology, every secret they left behind, we should give it all away." "That's dangerous," someone objected. Junho shook his head. The precursors didn't fail because they shared knowledge. They failed because the Council hoarded it. They created scarcity. They made species fight for scraps. If we want to build something better, we need to do the opposite. We need to create abundance. Minji supported his proposal, though with modifications. "We share the technology, but with conditions. Species have to pass ethical trials, prove they won't use it for conquest or oppression. The precursors left us tests. Programs that can evaluate a civilization's values. We use those. Values. Values. Values." It was a compromise that most could accept. Over the following months, precursor technology spread across the Federation. Not as weapons, though defensive systems were included, but as tools for healing, building, and exploring. Technology that made life better, rather than more dangerous. High above Earth's moon, Commander Day supervised the dismantling of the defense platform. They didn't need it anymore. The Council fleet had joined them. The war had never happened, but the shield technology was too valuable to waste. We're going to build 47 more of these, he told his engineering team. One for each world the Council destroyed. We're going to protect those star systems. And someday, when we're ready, we're going to terraform them. Bring them back to life. It was an ambitious project. It would take decades, maybe centuries. But Earth had time now. They had allies. They had hope. Quan's ship moved through space on routes that were no longer secret. The Federation had opened all trade lanes to everyone. His smuggling career was over, but he didn't mind. He had a new job now, Federation ambassador to the Rim worlds. The distant systems that had never been part of the Council. We're not here to conquer, he told the representatives of the Rim species when he arrived. We're not here to rule. We're just here to talk, to share, to offer friendship, if you want it. Some Rim worlds were suspicious. They had heard promises before, but Quan showed them something that changed their minds. He showed them Earth's broadcasts. The story of how one planet had stood against an empire and won. Not through superior force, but through truth and courage. We want to be like you, one Rim leader said. We want to be free. You already are, Quan replied. That's the whole point. The Federation doesn't give freedom. It just protects the freedom you already have. Back on Earth, Suji trained a new generation of pilots. Her squadron had become legend during the brief conflict with the Council. Young people from a dozen species wanted to join. They wanted to be part of Earth's defense forces. But Suji taught them something unexpected. We're not just warriors, she said to her students. We're peacekeepers. Our job is to make sure nobody ever has to choose between submission and death. We fly fast and hit hard, but only when there's no other option. Her fighters patrolled Federation space, stopping pirates and raiders. But more often, they delivered supplies to struggling colonies. They rescued stranded ships. They explored dangerous regions and mapped safe routes. They became symbols of protection rather than destruction. Dr. Sora never stopped working. The precursor technology was infinite in its applications. Every solution led to new questions. Every answer revealed deeper mysteries. She spent her days in the laboratory, pushing the boundaries of what was possible. We've developed a faster-than-light communication system that doesn't have lag, she announced to the Federation Scientific Council. Real-time conversations across any distance. How? Someone asked. Quantum entanglement on a macro scale. The precursors figured it out millions of years ago. I just had to read their notes. Quantum entanglement. I readily sighed. Tensions. It was a breakthrough that changed everything. No more waiting days, or weeks, for messages to travel between star systems. The Federation could coordinate instantly. Species could stay connected. Families, separated by light years, could talk as if they were in the same room. Taeyang led the Federation's exploration fleets. They searched for more precursor sites, more gifts left behind by the ancient race. Every discovery was shared freely. Every world that showed promise for colonization was offered to species that needed new homes. We found another temple, he reported during one expedition. This one contains medical technology, cures for diseases that we didn't even know existed. The Federation's medical teams descended on the site immediately. Within months, plagues that had killed billions across the galaxy were eliminated. Genetic disorders were corrected. Lifespans increased. The galaxy was becoming healthier and stronger. Unbi continued building. But now she created tools instead of weapons. She designed mining equipment that didn't damage ecosystems, manufacturing systems that produced no waste, energy generators that could power entire cities without pollution. The precursors weren't just warriors, she explained during a lecture. They were engineers who believed technology should serve life, not destroy it. Everything they created was designed to nurture and protect. We should do the same. Her inventions spread across Federation space. Worlds that had been strip-mined and polluted began to heal. Deserts bloomed. Dead oceans came back to life. The galaxy was being restored. Nari managed the Federation's communication networks. Every day, billions of messages flowed through her systems. News, entertainment, education, art. Species that had never met were now exchanging ideas and culture. The galaxy was becoming connected in ways that had never been possible under the Council. Look at this, she showed Hyun one day. A Krell warrior just posted a poem about peace, and a Valen scientist responded with a painting. They're from opposite sides of the galaxy, and they're creating art together. Hyun smiled. That's what freedom looks like. Not just political freedom, creative freedom, social freedom, the freedom to be yourself and share it with others. Former War Marshal Vren became the Federation's military coordinator. He had spent his life fighting for the Council. Now he spent it preventing wars. When conflicts arose, he mediated. When tensions grew, he diffused them. When threats appeared, he organized responses that were measured and appropriate. I destroyed 17 civilizations for the Council, he said during a public testimony. I can never atone for that. But I can spend the rest of my life making sure it never happens again. The galaxy forgave him. Not because his crimes were small, but because his redemption was genuine. He became a symbol of how even those who had done terrible things could change and help build something better. Ambassador Kotilk served as the Federation's conscience. When debates became too heated, he reminded everyone why they had formed the Federation. When species argued over resources, he proposed sharing solutions. When fear began to drive policy, he spoke of hope instead. The Council fell because it ruled through fear, he said during one particularly difficult debate. If we want to build something that lasts, we must lead through inspiration. We must show the galaxy that cooperation is stronger than compulsion. Minho coordinated the intelligence networks that kept the Federation safe. But unlike the Council's spy agencies, his networks were transparent. Every species knew what information was being gathered and why. Trust was built on honesty, not secrecy. We've detected a potential threat from outside the galaxy, he reported during a security briefing. Ships that don't match any known configuration. They're still far away, but they're coming. The Federation didn't panic, they prepared. Ships moved into defensive positions. Scientists studied the sensor data. Diplomats prepared first contact protocols. The galaxy was ready for whatever came next. Minji had become the Federation's chief strategist. Not for conquest, but for protection. She designed defense networks that could respond to threats anywhere in Federation space. But she also designed them to be purely defensive. No weapons that could be used for invasion. No technology that could threaten peaceful worlds. We are the shield, not the sword, she said to her military planners. We protect the weak. We stop the aggressive. We maintain the peace. But we never, ever become the oppressor. 5 years after the Council's fall, Yuna stood on a platform orbiting one of the restored worlds. Below her, forests grew where there had been only ash. Oceans flowed where there had been only dust. Life was returning to a planet that the Council had killed. Is it always this beautiful? Asked a young diplomat from a species that had just joined the Federation. No, Yuna admitted. Sometimes it's messy. Sometimes we make mistakes. Sometimes species argue and fights break out, and we have to mediate disputes that have lasted for generations. But it's worth it. Because this galaxy belongs to everyone now. Not just the powerful. Everyone. She looked up at the stars, each one representing possibilities. Worlds waiting to be explored. Species waiting to meet each other. Technologies waiting to be discovered. The future was vast and uncertain and beautiful. What do we do now? The young diplomat asked. Yuna smiled. We keep building. We keep growing. We keep learning. And we never forget what the precursors taught us. That the purpose of strength is to protect the weak. that the purpose of knowledge is to enlighten the ignorant, that the purpose of freedom is to share it with everyone. From Earth's surface, Hyun watched another ship launch into space. It was a colony vessel, carrying families to a new world. They were going to start fresh, build something new, live freely. Earth was marked for death, Nari said, standing beside him at the observation post. But we didn't just survive, we changed everything. The galaxy needed us, Hyun replied. The precursors knew it millions of years ago. They designed us to be the ones who would stand up when no one else would, who would fight when fighting was necessary, and who would build when the fighting was done. Do you think they knew it would work? Nari asked. Hyun looked up at the sky, filled with ships from 100 worlds. All of them flying the Federation banner. All of them committed to a future of cooperation and freedom. I think they hoped, he said. And hope was enough. Across the galaxy, in the restored precursor temple on Titan, the ancient consciousness recorded everything. It watched humanity and their allies build a civilization that the precursors themselves had dreamed of but never achieved. It watched freedom spread. It watched tyrants fall. It watched a new age begin. And in its database, preserved for whatever came next, it recorded a simple message. The warriors came when they were needed. They fought when they had to fight. They won when victory seemed impossible. And when the war was over, they built something better than what came before. Earth had been marked as the next target. One message had sent the galaxy into chaos. And from that chaos, something beautiful had emerged. A federation of free worlds. A galaxy where every species had a chance to grow. A future where fear no longer ruled. The precursors would have been proud.